The major factors, one of them is fear of the internet. There are a lot of unknown areas such as pornography. In my area, in Africa, in Kenya, where I come from, there is lack of knowledge of what you can do with the internet. Even when it's there, it's like compare it more with the Johari window. Some of them don't even know that they don't know. And then most of the people who try to do intervention, they want to move them across the box to a situation of where they know and they know that they know across, and yet it's got to be a process where you take them across to know the things they don't know, and then they appreciate, and then they learn. So education is a big problem to address all the issues, whether it's pornography, whether it's going to be what can be done, whether it's security. That is a problem. The moment you have internet access, the first thing it does is that it saves you money. You no longer have to travel long distances to communicate. You get to know what is happening anywhere in the world where simply you have the internet. But then the problem comes in terms of the cost. So it impacts in the sense that if you have the access, but then the cost is again higher than traveling, then the cost benefit of the internet becomes meaningless. This is a big problem you find in Kenya, for instance. A study commissioned by the regulator found out that the ISPs, the internet service providers, have been making up to 450% markup on the local bandwidth segment. So as much as we blame internet and satellite connectivity cost, it's not true always. Information, power, the freedom of expression. I am also involved in freedom of expression, so you are able to state your idea to a potential 1.2 billion people out there. Blog. I have seen government being sensitive to a possibility that I'll blog about something. That has given me tremendous power, which I have to use responsibly. So I know that is one big thing the internet gives to a simple person who's just connected. It's for this reason again it also gets threatened by the powers that be, because then if anybody can release anything on corruption, for instance, you know, and how it happened anonymously, you can say anything about a politician who is not, who is not behaving or maybe acting properly, abusing office. That is the two examples of how the internet gives power to the edges. So it's a very powerful democratization tool, as opposed to concentration on power on a few, like companies, like government. It decentralizes, and therefore, in terms of democracy, I think that is the biggest I could say. Freedom of information, coupled with freedom of information, is necessary, because then you can have it, but then no information is flowing in terms of content. Actually, yes and no. First of all, say yes, because when you decide, I think there's Article 19, where they talk about the freedom of expression, that as long as you don't infringe on somebody else's right, you can say anything, you can do whatever it is. So even if you remove culture out of it, we say you can do anything, you can express any idea, but so long as you don't infringe on another individual's right. So that by itself shows that everybody has a responsibility about every other individual. So it's hard when you bring it culture, because culture aggregates groups of people. But if you actually say an individual doesn't like this, then the option is to give that individual the chance, the option to define what they can receive and what can refuse. I can choose, if you like, it's like a menu where I just go and say, I don't want to see anything from, let's say, Uganda, if I don't like Ugandans who are my neighbors. So on my IP, if it's going to be IP version 6, because we are heading there, anything with Uganda will be filtered off. So that will then, my rights will not be infringed upon. There's always a problem when something becomes internationalized, in the sense of you want to come up with a rule, a policy, something that is blanket. This is why I think personally I believe even ICANN is the whole idea of starting IGF, because as well there is one body that handles the whole of internet, and it's called the final power. And it sometimes is read with suspicion. And so when UN leads it, personally I would think people will start finding, why is innovation? UN is not an innovator. You know, it's a forum. UN provides a platform for people to agree on issues and the way forward. So who would actually develop the Bill of Rights? It's not the Bill of Rights that would be a problem, and the diversity of the people. And the individual, when I start looking at the individual on all of that, I start wondering, it might be a bit tricky, it might be an uphill task, even if you engage, and I don't want to engage in a losing battle. I started from the beginning. That's my take on that one. Not that a Bill of Rights would be bad, but I wonder who would be leading it, and enforceability. Because then when, in every country, you can just put a proxy and you do whatever you want. My hope is that telcos do not make the internet theirs. They say our internet, it's actually telcos' internet. And so the individual at the edges becomes nothing other than just a customer. But they are the ones who tell you how much they'll sell your internet. And so the ownership of the internet, literal ownership, it must actually find the same way to empower the edges, it must go there. I'm concerned with issues to do with net neutrality and how commercial interests seem to be winning, you know. So now if you're going to be told you're not going to have the internet here, but you can't have it unless you pay an arm and a leg, then that's worrisome. We've got to find, and this one now we can actually ask for intervention. In Africa, the initial problem used to be monopolies. It has now changed. It has become private monopolies. And there's oligopolies, as we call them. There's an article I was telling you on today's newspaper. In other words, very few suppliers of internet and related services, telecommunication, and then they are price fixing at a far much worse rate than they are doing in the developed countries. And then we are nicknamed the emerging markets. So to look nice to everybody else. So sometimes the data they have of affordability, they are making super profits, is misrepresenting affordability, because actually the cost benefit I said about earlier is too high. So the telecommunication companies, we must put a spotlight on them and start zooming in on what they are doing so the internet can grow and it can benefit the people at the edges, like we were just saying earlier. The youth are always ahead of every technology, even mobile phone, even internet. And you find the same challenges apparent in the UK has far the same as in Nairobi, because the youth are able to type fast. They know URLs much faster. A new technology comes out, Web 2, they know about it. And even like when they share mobile phones, they take like Greek. There was a study where they take a phone and then they share through wireless pictures. Not the pictures the parents would like to see, but you buy a kid a phone and then they do all sort of things with it, and at school they share it. So yes, when the kid is being introduced to internet, it starts early. At school, depends on the school the child is in. If they're in a public school, chances are they might not know more about it. They might not get introduced to the internet. But private schools have resources, like my daughter Kimberly is in a school where in the kindergarten, they were introduced to computers. And like last year, there's Stephen Huter of Network Startup Resource Center had come to Nairobi for ISOC's INET 06, and she was happy to tell him to teach him to get into the internet. So,